poor mechanic fixed a millionaire's car. Then his life changed forever. The rain hammered against the tin roof of the small garage the night everything changed, and Marcus Webb had exactly $43 left in his wallet to last until the end of the month. He didn't know it yet, but the muddy black sedan being towed toward his shop that evening carried more than a broken engine, it carried the turning point of his entire life. Marcus was 34 years old, and for the past 6 years he had run a one-man auto repair shop on the edge of town, a place with a flickering sign and a roof that leaked in 3 different spots. He had inherited the garage from his father, along with his father's debts, and every single day felt like a battle just to keep the lights on. His daughter, Ivy, was 7, and she didn't understand why they couldn't afford new shoes for school, why dinner some nights was just rice and whatever vegetables were on sale. Marcus carried that guilt like a stone in his chest, heavier than any engine block he'd ever lifted. If you believe that kindness can change a life, and that everyone deserves a second chance, tap that like button right now, leave a comment below, share this story with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Hope and Wisdom so you never miss a story like this one. That stormy evening, a tow truck pulled up outside Marcus's garage carrying a sleek, expensive sedan that had broken down on the highway just outside town. Behind the wheel had been a man named Julian Ashford. Though Marcus didn't know that name yet, all he saw was an exhausted, soaked stranger in a rumpled suit, pacing anxiously outside while the tow driver explained the engine had simply died without warning. Every other shop in town was closed for the night, but Marcus never turned away someone in need, even when his own hands were trembling from exhaustion after a 14-hour day. "I can take a look," Marcus said simply, wiping grease from his palms onto a faded rag. The stranger, visibly relieved, nodded and stepped inside out of the rain. Marcus worked through the night. He didn't know that the man sitting quietly in the corner of his cramped waiting area, sipping bitter coffee from a chipped mug, was one of the wealthiest investors in the country, a man who had flown into town for a business deal that had fallen apart hours earlier, leaving him stranded, frustrated, and more alone than his fortune could ever fix. Julian watched Marcus work with quiet fascination, not just the skill in his hands, but the patience, the care, the way he treated a stranger's broken-down car as if it truly mattered. There was no shortcut taking, no rushing, just steady, honest effort under a flickering light bulb at 2 in the morning. Somewhere around 3 a.m., exhausted and unable to sleep, Julian asked Marcus why he worked so hard for so little. Marcus laughed softly, the kind of laugh that carries more sadness than humor, and told him about Ivy, about the garage his father left him, about the medical bills from his father's final illness that still weren't fully paid off. He spoke without asking for pity, without even realizing he was revealing the quiet heartbreak underneath his calm exterior. He simply spoke honestly, the way tired people do in the loneliest hours of the night, when pretending feels like too much effort. By dawn, the engine roared back to life. Julian stood in the doorway of the garage, watching the sun rise over the wet pavement, and he felt something shift inside him, a memory of his own father, a mechanic who had died believing he'd never amounted to anything, though he had taught Julian everything about resilience and hard work. Julian reached for his wallet to pay the bill, but Marcus waved it off gently, saying the cost of parts was enough, that he couldn't in good conscience charge more to a stranded traveler. That single act of decency stayed with Julian long after he drove away. Weeks passed, and Marcus assumed the encounter was nothing more than a forgotten favor on a rainy night. But one afternoon, a black car pulled up outside the garage again. This time, Julian stepped out holding a folder full of documents. He explained, with quiet emotion in his voice, that he wanted to invest in Marcus's garage, to help him expand, modernize the shop, hire staff, and finally pay off the debts weighing him down. It wasn't charity, Julian insisted, it was partnership, built on trust earned in the middle of a storm. Marcus stood frozen, overwhelmed, uncertain if this was real. He thought of Ivy, of the countless nights he'd whispered promises to her that things would get better, promises he wasn't always sure he could keep. Tears welled in his eyes as he realized that one small act of kindness, offered without expectation of anything in return, had somehow reached back to save him. Over the following months, the tiny garage transformed into a thriving business, one built on the same honesty and heart Marcus had always poured into his work. Ivy got her new shoes, and so much more, a father who no longer carried fear in his eyes, a home filled with laughter instead of quiet worry. Julian, too, found something he hadn't realized he was searching for, a genuine friendship, untouched by money or status, rooted in the simple truth that decency still matters in this world. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who might need a reminder that kindness always finds its way back. Your support means more than you know, and it helps this channel keep bringing you stories like Marcus and Julian's. Before we close this story, if you made it this far, drop the word hope in the comments below. I'd love to see how many of you believe, like Marcus did, that even in our darkest, most exhausting nights, kindness never goes unnoticed. Sometimes the smallest act of grace becomes the very thing that changes everything.